Hi, welcome to the Write or Die Show. I am your host, Randi-lee. Today, I'm going to be talking with Vivianne Knebel, and she has some great stories to share. Born in Germany, ended up in the States. Let's go find out. Welcome, Vivianne. So glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Well, I published my book 2 years ago. I was born in Germany in the epicenter of Nazi Germany in 1943, and I published my life story. I thought it's something that is worth hearing for everyone. There's a lot to be learned. There were a lot of struggles in my life, and now I live in California, beautiful San Diego, and I've reached a point in my life where I'm most content and peaceful, and after having gone through so much in my life.
That's awesome to hear. So, I mean, your story basically starts with when you're born, since you were born in
Yes,
that time.
yes.
I'm going to let you decide where you want to start this conversation because, yeah, you have an entire life, but we only have about 25
Yeah,
minutes.
we don't have, right. Well, I had many strikes against me when I was born. I was born illegitimate to a very fierceful, devoted mother. She was a very loving mother, and but it was taboo in Germany, Nazi Germany, to be illegitimate. On top of it, I had no country. They deemed me stateless,
Oh,
and because you are what the father is, and since I was illegitimate, I had no father, and so I was just deemed stateless. So, with other words, I had no country, belonged to no country, and I struggled in school. I remember the aftermath of World War II in Berlin, where most of it, Berlin was destroyed. Constant hunger and cold was what we was just a given at that time, and it was a constant struggle. And my mother, she survived, keeping us afloat while she worked in the black market, striking deals and sewing braziers, anything to, get some food on the table. And so it was a great struggle. And when I entered school, I had challenges in school. I could not follow the concept of the teacher, and that was very frustrating. And that the teacher condemned me as dumb to my mother, and I had to repeat the grade, and all that just worked on my low self-esteem. It just went downhill all the time. I had very low self-esteem, and then at the age of about 7, that's when my mother connected with an old schoolmate who just returned from Siberia. He'd been in prison for 5 years in Siberia, and he eventually moved in with us. And my mother said, "Now you have a father." And I was so delighted to have a father, and to call him Papa right away. And but then that was a struggle as well. After about half a year or so, after he had moved in, then he began to drink. He disappeared on weekends, did not come home, and drank on weekends. And so there were a lot of verbal and fights and physical fights even that I witnessed. And I learned from all that and said to myself, when I grow up, it's going to be different. And I happen to be very fortunate that I later on met my husband. But then before that, we immigrated to Canada. We crossed the Atlantic Ocean with a boat, went to Canada in the first winter. Yeah, we were looking for a better life. And so the first winter, though, was brutal. We went hungry again because he couldn't find any work as a tailor. He was a custom tailor. He couldn't find any work in the first winter. So we went hungry, and I had to go. My mother took me by the hand. We went into a church and explained our plight to the priest in my little broken English. And the priest sympathetically handed us $35 to survive, to get the staples, My mother went out immediately, bought rice and flour and things that would last a long time. And then I begged my mother to leave school. I wanted to contribute and help when I was 14, and she got a special permit. And so I got a job with a dentist, and he wanted to train me as a dental assistant. And I was so eager to learn and grow, but I had a rude awakening there again. I was sexually abused by one of his friends while the doctor was not in the office, and I was only 14, totally innocent, and that was a shock. And I left that office, and then got a job at behind a lunch counter at Woolworths, which I liked because I liked to be around people and always made sandwiches with care and heart and wanted to serve and please
Oh,
people. But I knew I had to do more. I needed to advance. I wanted to improve my station in life, and so I went to night school and learned to type in stenography, and eventually got a job at Volkswagen Sales and Service at that iconic German car dealership. And I worked up there in the office and with women that were over twice my age. There was no camaraderie. There was stifling, and I became increasingly unhappy and slipped into deep depression. And that was my lowest point. I was 17 at the time, and I heard somewhere I wanted to end my life, and I heard somewhere if you close a garage door and start the motor, the carbon monoxide would render you unconscious, and then you would just drift off, and that would be the end of you. And there was a miraculous intervention. While I was waiting for my ultimate end, a little girl appeared in front of me. She must have been around 6, and I still remember that short cropped hair and the short dress. And she asked me, "What are you doing?" And I immediately turned off the motor, opened the garage door, and I just meekly told her, I'm going to wash my car. And then I thought, where did she come from? She just skipped off blissfully, unaware that she saved my life. And
wow.
so I asked myself, where did she come from? Because it was in a duplex. I had a little used car, and I rented a garage in a duplex. And then I realized she must have come in a side door that I was unaware of.
Oh,
But then I had to start all over, and I just kind of held on to a glimmer of hope and continued my usual routine. And eventually, a few months later, I got the job. There was a position open in the same company in the service department as the secretary for the service manager. And since I learned stenography and typing and so on, I was given the job immediately.
oh,
And I was happy there because there were people. I was among people, and I had life. There was life around me. And then one day, a man walked in when I was 20, and he bought a Porsche, and he became my husband.
oh. Well, then
So, and from then
for that
on,
job.
yes, and from then on, the pendulum swung from sadness to in desperation to joy and hope and happiness. So my husband, this is why I wrote my book, because I felt I have a lot. I owe him a lot because he always encouraged me to learn and grow and take risks and look for opportunities. And I followed him, and he was the best guide for me, my mentor. I'm so grateful over the years. I've been married now for 56 years. And over the years, I've always told him, how much I appreciate all that he has done for me. He had been the wind beneath my wings. And then I decided to write this book as a gift, from rubble to champagne, as a gift for his 80th birthday, in order to thank him for all he has done for me. And then I start writing about my life story, and we immigrated to the United States, and a country, that chose to adopt me. I wanted to be a citizen of this country, and they chose to adopt me, and I'm immensely grateful for that, because this country has given me us both so many opportunities. My husband thrived in his business and real estate investments, and I moved from, one can say it's cliche, but rags to riches, from poverty to wealth.
Well, that's what
and
it
I'm
seems
here.
like.
Yes, it's a Cinderella story, but it started with a lot of hurt. I had to many challenges that I had to overcome.
Yeah. Wow. And it's so nice that now you can say that you have a country because like you were saying when you were born, you you couldn't claim that you had a country.
Yes, yes, yes. The first time I had that real sense of belonging, it's you probably can't imagine. You have to go through it. You have to experience it yourself
Yeah.
in order to really feel how much that means.
Yeah. Because I mean, I was just born in Canada and it was just, oh, yep, this is just your place, right? It
Yeah,
was
yes, yes. You take things for granted. This is it, and that's it. But you will see things differently when you go through it.
yeah, definitely. So let's take it back a little bit to your, I guess, stepfather, but really the only father that it sounds like you've ever known.
Yeah, he actually was not my stepfather, but he lived with us, and I called him Papa, and all until he stayed. They stayed together in a marriage that did not. It was not a good marriage, but they stayed together because, for many reasons, women do that. And for my mother's, well, her reason was she needed a meal ticket for children, so she put up with certain things and out of desperation, that's how it was. And so we were not adopted, although he would have probably would have adopted us, but my mother did not want him to have any authority over us. So
Okay, that's
yeah.
good. So how did the dynamics change? Because you were saying that your mom was such a good, loving mom. How did the dynamics change once um, this man came in and then turned out to be an alcoholic?
Well, the dynamics with my mother did not change. My mother she always believed in her children, instilled great values in us, even though we were raised among chaos. She taught us what is right, what is wrong, and to be compassionate. That was one of her strengths. But we could see my mother become increasingly unhappy in the relationship, but she had no other choice, and we just accepted it. And in the end, I even forgive him for that, because it's just, you have to have forgiveness. I think it just, when you forgive, it's a freeing experience. You do something good for yourself, for your physiology, and psychologically. I think it's very important to be able to forgive. And I also see the parts that were good about him. We must also remember the good things. He did provide food on the table. We sewed clothing for us, so these were good things. But it
Yeah.
was just hard to live in an environment. There were always fights, but I learned from this experience.
Yeah, but that's really good. I actually, the other day, I was trying to explain to my youngest why forgiveness is so powerful. So he was just doing a history class and they were just talking about World War II and the Holocaust. And
Ah, yeah,
I had to watch
that's
the one,
interesting.
yeah, it was very cool. And the one video they had to watch was about one of the survivors, who was part of the twin experience, the experiments, and her sister had died, but she had ended up forgiving the doctor. And it took a long time for my kid to wrap his head around how she
How can
could
you forgive them?
forgive this man.
Yeah,
And I was trying to explain it's not about being okay with what they did, it's about
right.
releasing yourself, which is
Yeah,
kind of what you said. It was a freeing experience.
freeing, right. Otherwise, that poison grows and grows, and you become what you think and feel. So I learned to live in a way that I allow no thoughts to enter my consciousness that are unloving. I will not let unloving thoughts emanate from my consciousness. I really only, I think love is the greatest thing. It's so powerful, and it's the absolute best.
Yeah. And that's why I loved that you mentioned that, because it is such a hard concept for even adults. I mean, my kid is only, he's 14, and he has autism. So some concepts are harder to understand in general. But even for adults who don't have a disability, it can be a hard concept to realize, if I forgive you, it doesn't mean that what you did was okay.
Condone it. Right,
It
right.
just means that I'm not holding on to that anger anymore. I'm letting it
Yes,
go. You don't
yes,
control
yes.
my life anymore.
Right, right.
That's such a good point that you made, that I think it's so important to make sure everyone understands that forgiveness is for you, it's not for them.
The best thing you can do for yourself. Believe me, yes. So I'm very forgiving person, definitely. Not that I condone it. Right, right.
Exactly. So then in school, you were talking about how the teacher made you repeat a grade. How did that make you feel? Like, so you were talking about lowered self-esteem. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Well, I tell you, you already feel they already have so many strikes against you. You have no father. You're considered illegitimate. And I remember entering school and holding my notebook and said, I'm going to do so well, because I always wanted to the best I can possibly do. It's innate in me. Always, how can I serve? What can I do? How can I get better? But I just could not follow the concepts of the teacher. I needed more time. That was the thing. I needed more time. And at that time, it's either you got it or there were no special treatments. This was a very harsh reality there. And so I just looked at the clock and willed the time to go away. And I was so totally out of it. And so it made me feel worthless. That can really be that can grow and grow, and it did grow, but eventually I got out of that.
How old were you at that time?
And that was when from 6. I entered school when I was 6. I did not go to kindergarten. So it's
Oh,
most of the children went to kindergarten at already a little bit ahead, feeling for the school, but I did not go to kindergarten, and I struggled. It was just a terrible struggle, and it's torture. Actually, for a child, it's torture to sit there and not get it and have to
yeah,
go through the hours. And then for others, you feel that they look down on you. It's like you're considered dumb. And so
yeah,
all that works on the psyche.
yeah. And you're clearly not dumb. You are quite intelligent.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah.
But
I
you
just
said you
needed,
needed
I
more
needed
time.
more time. I needed more time, which I didn't get. And then I fell behind.
Yeah. And then at 14, you went to work. And I mean, apparently it all worked out well for you, because where you ended up finally working at
And
20, you met your husband.
yes,
But it sounded like you had this great potential opportunity at 14 at this dental office,
yes,
but
yes.
tragedy took it away.
Yes, yes. And it was such a struggle for me, because when this friend came in, he must have been in his mid 40s or so, and I was only 14, but I looked developed, and I, stepped into my beauty at that time already. And so I did not look my age. And I was completely innocent. And when after he sexually abused me, and I kind of I still didn't dare to really fight him off, because I thought, just kind of just go away, or he'll be back soon, and so on. And then I struggled with myself, because I didn't know how to handle it. Asked myself, am I going to tell the doctor? Then I have to repeat what he touched me, what he did. And it was so embarrassing for me that I struggled. Am I going to tell him? Then I thought, if I don't tell him, he'll come back and he'll do it again. So I decided, I had the courage to tell him, and he was on my side. My boss was on my side. He said, this man is never going to enter this office again, and he was on my side, but I did not. I left. I did not want to,
So
stay
how
there.
did you end up dealing with that? Because that is a lot to handle at any age, but especially at 14.
Yes. Well, I kind of, it was more, everything was survival at that time. You kind of focused more on survival. And I again later on in my youth, at work, it was a given almost. There were always people, who kissed you when you didn't, you just forced themselves on you more or less. That when they had a moment with you alone, that was just what you had to put up with. I'm so glad that's so different today. Women stand up for themselves, but I was young, I was innocent. It was a different time. Much was accepted, and it was a fight for survival, really. And we focused on survival.
Yeah. And now we're coming to 17. And I love
Good
how
point.
this little girl that you didn't even realize was in there saved you. But tell me, or us, everybody who's listening, about how you finally made the decision to try that and then how you came out of it.
Well, I tell you, the decision to do that is number one. I thought all my efforts were in vain. I tried so hard, and it just I got more and more depressed, and I thought all my efforts were in vain, and I saw no hope. And as a young person, you don't realize that life is not static. It changes even when you don't want it to change.
Oh, I love that. You're right, because life is always changing. I mean, you had went from Germany to Canada to begin with, so clearly life changed, but when you're in that,
Drastically.
yeah, you feel hopeless.
So I was so hopeless, and I thought there's no other way. And I pondered, and I thought, and then when I heard or some way I heard that there's a way that you can do this with this motor running and closing the garage door. And I just thought I did not want to live anymore. Of course, you don't see at that. It's kind of when you're young, you don't see what would this have done to my mother, would have devastated my mother, but you don't think that far.
No,
Now as I mature, I think God, would have destroyed my mother. So yeah, and then I just clung to that glimmer of hope again, and found the courage to keep on, moving, and it just gradually happened that I got finally a job. I got out of that department, where I was so just in one great big room with older people that there was just no connection at all, and everything on top of that. How can I better myself? How is this ever going to get better?
yeah,
And but I just believe that we need to understand young people. In their minds and hearts, their pain is real,
yeah,
and they deserve the support and love. And so I wish, even when I wrote my book From Rubble to Champagne, it is it I want to help people that are prone to distress and suffering. This is
yeah,
really my mission. I've done everything else in life. I've accomplished everything. I learned to pilot a plane. I ran a marathon. I helped my husband in his business. I mean, I'm definitely an accomplished woman, but
yeah.
I've grown within and become very spiritual, and I've always been compassionate, but now it's time to give back and lift those up that can that need help. And if I can do this with my writing, this is what I want to do.
That is awesome that you're doing that. Did you ever tell your mom that you tried?
Oh, my mother knew that I was I was, you would not believe, as a little child, when we were going through hunger constantly, I went with a little metal pail to a department store that had just been rebuilt because it was in rubble. Still remembered it in rubble. And there, that department store was rebuilt, and I went in there with that little metal pail and asked for scraps, so my chicken heads and fish heads, and brought them home. My mother made soup. And then I went to the open air market and got fish crates, wooden crates, so we keep warm and can make a fire. And my mother always praised me. She always said, "You're such a hard worker," and it just went down like butter. I needed praise.
Yeah,
So I bent over backwards, one can say, to please always. And so my mother built me up. She said, you can do anything, which I think was a beautiful thing. I was a lonely child. The only place where I felt really loved was in my mother's loving arms. That's where the only place where I felt the warmth and love in my mother's loving arms.
That's so good. So how did you deal with your depression and your suicide attempts?
You mean afterwards?
Yeah, afterwards.
Afterwards, I just focused. I set a goal. I said, I want to get, improve my station in life. I want to make it better, and just focused on what can I do? What can I do? Always going the extra mile for everything, always pleasing and doing my very best. And humor helped me a great deal. I had a cousin who had an incredible sense of humor, and she didn't know about how I felt. I hid it because I didn't want to tell people that I have that on top of all the things that I thought were minuses. So
Yeah.
I tried to hide that, and so she never knew about that. And she had this incredible sense of humor, and she got me out of this void, out of this black hole with her humor. And I remember I read somewhere Viktor Frankl wrote that humor is another of the soul's weapons in the fight for self-preservation. That is so true.
Yes.
That is so true. And so I thank my cousin as well for that. There's so many helping hands in life. They appear under bizarre circumstances sometimes. And but as you reflect and you think about it, it's like, this person has helped me, But that's later on. We have to live our life forward. But many things we truly, really understand only looking backwards.
Yes, that is so true, especially when you're in the midst of it. And you've said it already, when you're in survival mode, right? When you're in that
Yes.
survival mode and you can only think about what can I do right now to make sure that I can wake up tomorrow.
Yes,
There's
yes.
no
Your
time.
focus is on that.
Yeah,
Right.
there's no time to think about why am I feeling depressed?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Oh, no way. Yeah. It's
Oh,
just, I hope it gets better. It hurts, and I hope it gets better. That was the only thing. That's only as far as you thought at that time. But
yeah.
I don't wish it. And yet, I tell you, I am grateful I went through all these hard times and challenges, because they made me who I am today. They made me have a profound sense of gratitude. I'm grateful for the smallest of things.
Mhm.
And I think you can only be that way once once you've gone through the hardship. So
Yeah.
my challenges have made me strong. They fortified me.
Yeah, there's that saying, right? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Sounds like
I think Nietzsche said that.
yeah,
Yes.
sounds like you're tough as steel now.
I am, and I've had such a great life with my husband, being so loving and understanding and always supporting me in all my endeavors,
Mhm.
and seeing potential in me that I thought I never had. He saw that. He once said, when I met you, it was like bending down, I picked up a stone, it looked different. And when I polished it, it turned out to be a diamond. That's what he said to me. And that's he saw the potential. He
Yeah.
saw the potential, and therefore I'm so grateful. And life has just been going so beautifully. And then again, I was confronted one more time, and that was at the most beautiful decade, at this most beautiful decade of my life, when I turned 70, when I stepped into my own power.
Oh,
I
okay.
thought, now I've arrived. It's like, instead of thinking I'm getting old, no way, I'm just starting. It's now I've arrived. And then I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I thought, why now, when everything is so perfect? But life is like a puzzle. You've got the perfect picture, and then a piece is taken and you scramble again to put it together. That's how it is.
Yeah.
I was challenged again, and at first it was a shock. But it was it was cancer stage 1. So I went through the operation, the radiation, the 5 years of the pill, and so on. But all this time, at first I was shocked, but then I decided, as I excuse me, I set my breakfast table at night always, and in the morning I sat down and I said to myself, how am I going to deal with cancer? And then I decided not to be the victim, but to take a positive approach and fight this thing with positivity and hope. And I already felt a shift. The moment I put myself into that mindset, I already felt a shift. And I felt an incredible gratitude, number one, because they detected it early on.
Yep.
And so I went through this and survived it. And I've been now I'm going next month. I'm going to be 78. So we for 8 years I've been cancer free, and so I survived that. And now I'm challenged one more time with my husband. My husband had open heart surgery 3.5 years ago and has complications now. Has a ruptured valve, which tricuspid valve, which cannot be operated on because it can be operated, but he's too weak for that operation. So there is a research trial thing going on, and he is a candidate for that. And he had to undergo many tests where they go through the leg, through the vein, and insert clips to close they have to insert 3 clips. The question is now, will the committee accept him? He is a candidate for it, and he has to undergo several more tests in the next week or 10 days. And then we will know within 2 weeks whether he will be able to have this procedure. And he also has severe advanced liver disease. And the doctor said the liver disease may kill him before the heart disease. So he's severely ill, does not look it. It does not look it. It's just very slender because he lost all this weight, but he does not look it, does not act like he's sick. And I won't allow it, because I breathe positivity and hope into our environment. And I cheer him up, I hold him tightly, and I said, as long as we're together, we can face anything. And he knows he's got me by his side. And I am currently writing my second book, in which I also chronicle how we go through this, how we master this challenge, and in the most positive way. And I also am writing about the aging process, because many people just get old and become depressed and don't like their gray hair or their wrinkles. Whereas there is the wisdom, there's so much beauty in aging, there's strength in aging. There's an emerging energy to do something new. Like for me, I started to become a writer. So there's an emerging energy, and you just have to kind of look within, search, what is there? If I can do this, what is out there? There's so much out there for us. And even if somebody is severely ill, the presence is still important. That person has a history, they have a family, their presence, their love, their wisdom, all that needs to be appreciated and cherished. So I'm writing about that process, the aging process.
That's a really needed book. I don't think anybody really talks about that too much.
Yeah, everybody's not old, old. Look, I don't look as old as as decay. I don't see it as a decay. What I see is strength. I see strengths and possibilities. And wisdom, most of all wisdom. So I'm one of the most positive old people, and I love my stage. And I'm only old in years.
You're awesome.
I love the stage in my life. This is the most beautiful stage of my life, except I have to now deal with this. There's always some grief, but the way we approach these things, pain and suffering is part of life. There can be no life without it. But suffering, we have an option, we have a choice. how we handle it, how we cope with the situations, you know. And I think I understand that. And I've always studied for many, many years, studied the works of the great minds and poets, which give us the values and help us to make sense of the world. You know, they guided me through life.
Yeah.
And I'm writing about them as well. And I want to also express my gratitude toward these great minds. So
Yeah.
this is my next book.
Wonderful. That sounds exciting. And yeah, you're right. We have to decide how we're going to deal with stuff, how we're going to cope with it. And it sounds like you're using positivity, and you've used humor and just in writing. So there's a lot of different ways that we can go about that. What would
Right.
you tell somebody who's listening right now and going through their own self-esteem issues, depression, just hardships? What's your advice to them?
I would say never lose hope. Hope, cling to hope that, you know, things change. Like I said before, life isn't static, things change. And have a hope and a dream and focus and persevere and be determined. Without perseverance and determination, you won't get very far. And without hope, there's no reason to get up. There's no reason for living. So cling to hope and always believe better is coming.
That is beautiful. Where can people get a hold of your book?
You can get it at Amazon, at Barnes and Noble. Some bookstores have it. Here, do you see it?
I'll move it a little bit. Oh, there we go. Nice.
From Rubble to Champagne,
Yeah.
rising from the ashes of war-torn Berlin to a life of grace, beauty, and gratitude. So it's a book about gratitude. I think if a book has just one line, one passage with an idea, you know, that is an idea where people can learn something that will better their life, it justifies reading it. And I think my book has that. I want to help people. That is my motivation.
I love that. And can people follow you somewhere?
Yes, I'm on the web, www.vivianneknebel.com. I'm also on Tumblr. I'm on Facebook. Yes, Instagram, Facebook, and the website and Tumblr as well. Yeah, I'm
Perfect.
everywhere.
Excellent. And we are going to hook those links up down below in the description so that you can very
Good.
easily find Vivianne and follow
Yes.
along with all of the great things that is going on in her life. And thank you so very much for being on the show.
And I appreciate you having me, and I thank you for allowing me to have a voice.
Of course. And your voice needs to be heard. You've got such great experience and wisdom to share. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
What a great interview. Loved talking to her. I think that she has so much wisdom to share. You should check out her books. Remember, the links to follow her or find the book is down below in the description. And that way you can stay up to date as she is writing this new book. And of course, if you want to support the channel, we do have a merch store with some really cool designs. 10% of those proceeds go to the Canadian Mental Health Association. As well, we do have a Patreon page if you want some behind the scenes footage from interviews. And remember that the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly. Bye.